Hello, everybody, and welcome. My name is Kristen Rose, and I'll be the moderator for this session today. Thank you for being here. Well, you can see the title right there: HyFlex Course Design: A Practical Guide to keep teaching during COVID crisis and beyond. I want to welcome our presenters today, Lydia Frass and Vera Polyakova-Norwood. How'd I do on that? Did I get
Great.
that right? Okay. Thank you. And I'll let them just take it away.
Well, I definitely want to thank each of you for joining us this morning. It's a great day here in South Carolina, and we're so glad that you're spending a few minutes of your time with us. So I'm Lydia Frass, and I'm an instructional designer with the Center for Teaching Excellence at the University of South Carolina. And I'm joined by Vera, who is the Director of Online Learning for the College of Nursing here at South Carolina. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Vera to get us started.
Okay, so why are we talking about HyFlex model? And now let's just remember how things were in the spring, how all of a sudden in the middle of March, in the middle of the spring semester, we had to stop doing what we were doing, that we were used to doing, and all of a sudden move all classes online. And you remember how much that hurt in the spring. We were not given any planning time. Everything just felt awful. With just 1 week of prep, all classes went online, and we did learn a lot from that. Then over the summertime, we were thinking about the options for fall 2020 semester. What are we doing? Are we opening campuses? Are we teaching entirely face-to-face? Are we teaching entirely online or somewhere in the middle? What is the model? What should guide us? How, what, when? Summer was interesting. And so now we are in the middle of the fall semester. We more or less settled into routines. We sort of kind of figured out what we are doing, and things are moving along. And it's interesting that, you know, all classes are continuing. We didn't lose anybody. But are we fully aware of what we are doing, and is there a better way to get organized for this kind of situation? Also, do we know exactly what's going to happen in the spring semester? At the University of South Carolina, we are now having all kinds of discussions. We are looking at infection rates. We are trying to figure out what to do in the spring, and it kind of looks like the spring might be exactly like this fall semester because of all the uncertainty. And so this model, this HyFlex course delivery model, seems to be a very appropriate way for us to look at things, because it accommodates multiple delivery modes and transitions between them. If we have a hybrid flexible course, and then we can teach strictly in the classroom on campus, then we just eliminate the other parts of the model and we're ready to go. If we have to teach entirely online and we are ready for HyFlex, again, we just take that online piece, eliminate the on-campus piece, and we're ready to go. We don't have to do any additional planning. So that's why this course delivery model has bubbled up to the top over the spring and the summer semesters, and we are now exploring it for continuing to deliver the courses while we are struggling with the pandemic, but also looking ahead. What are we gonna do when things will return to normal? Okay, and so the learning outcomes for today's session We hope that at the end of this session, you will be able to describe the model, understand what it is, and then determine the applicability of this model to the instructional delivery of your particular courses, and also plan interactive lessons for students in your course in all delivery models. Okay, and so, Lydia?
So what exactly is the HyFlex delivery model? And thank you, Vera, for getting us started. And we're going to spend a minute and talk about what our interpretation of the HyFlex model is. You know, it was credited to Brian Beatty, who has defined it as a hybrid flexible course design enables a flexible participation policy for students, whereby students may choose to attend face-to-face synchronous sessions in person, typically in a traditional class, or complete course learning activities online without physically attending class. And some HyFlex classes allow for the further choice in the online delivery mode, including both synchronous and asynchronous participation. And that's a big wordy definition of what HyFlex is. And you know, it was a relatively new model for many people at our institution at the University of South Carolina. So Vera and I were talking about how to best explain the options, you know, and especially providing faculty the flexibility to meet the needs of their students. And so how we envision and see the HyFlex model is 3 delivery modalities occurring at the exact same time. In the HyFlex, students have the flexibility of moving across all whatever format they need on whatever day, with limitations now due to COVID. You know, we are really at the university, we want students to have flexibility, and we know faculty need flexibility also, but because of the pandemic, we do need, and we have in this model, the university has limited students from crossing over at any time that they want. So they have to attend class in the format in which they've signed up. So if the student is signed up for face-to-face, they might be able to move online. However, students who have signed up for online sections of a course cannot go to class in person, you know, and the whole purpose of this is for contact tracing purposes. So, you know, we thought it would also be a great idea to simplify exactly what it is and to provide some graphics in terms of what these 3 modalities actually look like. So we envision the face-to-face live, online streaming at the exact same time, and also the faculty member recording their class so that students who are participating asynchronously can watch those recordings and participate in activities not in the same time frame. So Vera's going to talk to you a little bit about the course organization here.
And at this point, we are looking at the big picture of course organization. Now, the first thing to remember for us all is that learning outcomes should be the same across all student groups, whether they are in the classroom right in front of you or watching you online or watching it later. Learning outcomes should be the same. Now, the learning activities do not have to be exactly the same for each group of students, but they can be the same. And Lydia and I figured out how to actually make them the same for all groups so that it is easier to make a transition from strictly in the classroom or strictly online, asynchronous, into this overall hybrid flexible model with 3 delivery modalities. And we will talk about that a little bit later, how to have the same learning activities for all 3 student groups, but again, they don't have to be the same. If they are not the same, they have to be comparable. Now, your live class sessions, of course, are taught in the traditional classroom. At the same time, it is broadcast to the students who are watching you live, and it's also recorded. So this serves as the lecture part of the course, and it also contains activities so that you would engage students and prepare them to do your bigger assignments. And then there should be a course site, whether it is in Blackboard or in another course management system. So you have a course site with all course materials posted, your syllabus, your schedule, additional resources, links to submit assignments, and that is one course site for all student groups. Now, at this point, let's do a quick check-in with our audience and see if you have any questions. And maybe if you would unmute your mics and just talk to us, just give us your questions verbally, we can have a short conversation. Does this make sense to you? 3 student groups, 3 different modalities, but we are trying to make the learning process the same or comparable.
And one thing that we have always kept in mind too is we understand that there is an increase in workload for faculty. And so we truly, at the heart of what we're trying to do is to help simplify this for them. One thing that we have heard before we started talking about the HyFlex is how faculty members were really creating 3 separate sections of the exact same course that they were teaching.
Well, and this may be a little too early for questions, but let us move on to the thinking activity 1. And here we are trying to model how to use quiz questions or simple discussion questions to engage the face-to-face audience and the live online audience. So we would like to ask you, with just this first brief introduction to HyFlex model, is the HyFlex model being used in your institution? Have you heard of anybody using it at your institution? And please type in the chat. It's just a yes, no, or unsure. Okay.
So it looks like we have 1 yes, 2 no's, 1 I don't know, 2 no's, and unsure. A yes, yes, unsure.
That's very good. The chat is working beautifully. And as you can see with this model, we are kind of like all over the map. Some people are using it, some people are not using it, some are using it, but they are not aware that they are using it. And others would say, I'm using HyFlex, but when you start looking under the hood, it's not quite HyFlex. So it's a nice, interesting mix here. Now let's move on to the second question. And again, with just this very preliminary introduction to the HyFlex model, what are the barriers? Could you think of 1 or 2 barriers to implementing this model? Again, we're looking for very brief answers, and if you would type in the chat, please. So let's see what is hindering the implementation of HyFlex. Well, yes, resistance to change is always there. Yes, bad internet connections. Knowledge of online technology, absolutely. Learning styles, that's really interesting. You see how the HyFlex model incorporates strictly in the classroom, online synchronous and online asynchronous. So it is probably the most democratic model for course delivery that we can find. Yes, definitely there are barriers to, extra work. Oh my goodness, yes, to think through it. Yes, that would take additional time and effort. Yes, ability to moderate the face-to-face and the online attendees at the same time, yes. Students not feeling like they belong within a group, no sense of a class. Yes, that can happen, and later in this presentation, we will be giving you tips on how to overcome that barrier. But thank you so much for sharing with us your thoughts on what can hinder the implementation of this model. Well, I think at this time we are ready to move on to part 2.
We do have one more question, Vera,
okay.
that I think it's important. Do you reuse recorded sessions in future classes?
We do not. We do not. We look at it as an interaction with the audience of now. And so it would not be appropriate to reuse it for a totally different group.
Thank you, Vera. So now we're going to switch gears a little bit and talk about the planning and design of this process. One thing that we do know is that it does require a few extra minutes of thought, you know, and especially if you're, if you've been teaching a class for a while and you already have a lesson plan and a process in how you actually teach, this is definitely throwing a whole lot of wrenches into the mix. So we know that it's very important to plan, and teaching in this format does require rethinking through how you deliver your classes, and it does layer in a little bit extra complexity with the technology piece that's added in there. But what we know is foundational is that planning your classes is foundational for everything. You know, you've got to have a good lesson plan, a good plan in place for how you deliver your instructional content. And we recommend breaking your content presentation into chunks. You know, and as we're in the instructional design field, and I'm sure if you're here at this conference, you're very familiar with best practices for online learning or distance delivery, but a lot of those components can be applied to this HyFlex model when it comes to instructional design and planning prior to the start of class. And one thing that we know is that in the first few weeks of class, when class starts back, that it's going to be awkward when you're delivering like this, you know, and so this is an opportunity to actually maximize your teaching presence in the class. Your presence will set the tone for your students, and your teaching presence has never been more needed than now. So, you know, you need to help keep your students motivated and engaged, and they need structure and active leadership from instructors. So you need to let them know in advance what the plan is, and let them know that you're all in this together, and the whole purpose is to engage them and to help their learning process. So, and we also, when we were working with faculty members, are encouraging them and encourage them to let them know you're all in this together. But like, as I said, planning is foundational to a good learning experience, and you need to stay focused on those learning outcomes, as Vera mentioned a few minutes ago. You need to decide what instructional content is crucial and what is supplemental. You have to break down your content presentation into chunks or segments. And we recommend about 15 to 20 minutes each at the most. Then interject some sort of active learning moment between segments. And this is where our thinking moment activities came into play. And they could be low tech or high tech, depending upon the instructor's proficiency with technology, as well as the class dynamics. And it could be something like the low tech quiz questions that Vera had a few minutes ago. You can also embed these into your learning management system or use a tool such as Kahoot or iClicker. You can have some discussion, mini case study analysis. You can have use the pause procedure. You can do show of hands. But there are a lot of different activities that you use in class that you can definitely continue to use, and also transition well into the online format. So these thinking moments do what, and again, thinking in terms of workload, we recommend doing what's easier and simple to do, what's light. Bigger activities, do these outside of class in your learning management system. And you can still make it feel interactive. It's about the feeling that you're including with your students. And insert, just like we did, a thinking moment slide, placeholder in your slide set if you're using PowerPoint, so that it's a cue not only to you, but to your students and for those who are watching later. And also think about how your students will respond to your prompts. You know, things like the think, pair, share might just become the think and share activity. You know, and so when they share, you can have students who are face-to-face raise their hands and share. Or, as I mentioned, you can use technology. But what do you do with the response? You know, quickly review and provide a brief commentary to the entire class in your presentation so that it's a debrief of what you're doing. And then the third part of this in planning process, you want to introduce your follow-up online activities at the end of your class. And we see this as part of the planning process. Not only will you have activities for students in class and through the lecture, but you'll have a follow-up online activity that everybody does at the end of the class or in whatever time period you assign it to. You know, you want to think in terms of these thinking moment activities in class as your active learning practice for the follow-up online activities. You know, and an example of something that is a little bit more complex could be something as role-playing, where your online synchronous or asynchronous session is recorded. You share to discuss, you share and you have a discussion on a discussion board, you know, and this becomes the online follow-up activity. Think in terms of what will give you the better class experience, what will give your students the better class experience, and what are you used to doing? How can you translate that from your prior pre-COVID teaching days to what you're doing now? So,
okay, and here we just want to acknowledge that teaching live class sessions may feel different. It will feel different. Right now, you have to wear a mask and it is very tiring. It's exhausting. Then you are looking around the class and most of the seats are empty. You may have very few students in front of you. But that's okay. Just remember that you are teaching more students than those who are right in front of you. So what happens during these live class sessions? Yes, as an educator, you are expected to wear a mask. And again, because we are now teaching through technology and not live classes being broadcast, Lydia, could we go to the next slide? The class is being broadcast. You have to stay closer to the podium. So you are within that webcam range and it can pick up your image and your sound. So if you are used to roaming around the classroom, this will feel a little bit constricting, but just think about reaching not only those who are in front of you, but also those who join the class online. And yes, some of the complex interactivity in the classroom will be gone, but not gone entirely, because we are replacing it by more interactivity outside of the class. So just think about your class time as getting students started on a discussion. But don't wrap up that discussion. It will continue. Or you are getting students started on a case study, but don't go all the way to solving the case study. Just get them started and they continue their work outside of class. This is how we propose you can involve your face-to-face students, online synchronous students, and online asynchronous students in doing the same activities, completing the same assignments, and collaborating with each other. In-class students with those who are online synchronous or asynchronous. And please don't forget to push the record button and record the class. Now, because you are now talking to a distance audience, you have to enunciate clearly. And the best way to do that is to start speaking slower. When we slow down, we pronounce words with greater care, and then it's easier to understand us. Because the chat can assume a life of its own and move really fast, you will need to find a helper. And it can be either another faculty member who is assigned as a co-instructor with you, or a teaching assistant, or you can even ask one of your students in the classroom to help you monitor the chat and alert you when comments start popping up. But again, it's important to keep in mind that you are teaching those who are right in front of you, those who are watching at the same time, and those who will be watching you later. And yes, if you are new to this, it's really difficult, but you can get better at it. Remember how Lydia and I already said, during the class time, you are just getting students started on discussions, on solving problems, on working through case studies. So after class, students in all three groups will complete the same after class online activities. And these are low stakes activities. They contribute only small points, only small percentages to the course grade. And this is how you can keep track of attendance or participation. If these are online activities and they are done in your course management system, your course management system will keep track of that participation. You don't have to count bodies in the classroom or pictures in Zoom. Also because you have created these follow-up activities, students will be attending class so that they can complete those activities. This is how you reach those who choose to go online, even asynchronous. They have to watch your class now, because during that class, an activity is started and they have to see that part to be able to complete their follow-up homework, so to speak. And so this provides formative assessment, and this actually shows you how the students are attending class and how they are learning. So this seems to be a win-win situation.
So, I'm sorry, Vera.
No, go ahead, please.
Okay. Well, and, you know, and some of these online follow-up online assessments, as Vera mentioned, can all be done in your learning management system. We have a few examples. You can have quick little knowledge checks that the system automatically grades. You can have micro essays, little shorts, 1-minute essays, and you could have a lot of different things occurring in there. But use your technology in your LMS to help manage your expectations too. So we're going to do a quick little check-in at this moment. Does anybody have any questions? If so, either open your mic or type them into chat. We're going to take a minute real quick and see how what y'all are thinking right now about this and how we can help you. Any questions? Okay, that sounds good. No questions are always good.
Okay.
You know, that brings us to our second thinking moment activity. And again, we are modeling using opportunities to use technology and to provide a different way to engage students. We do have one question related to, are there any privacy issues regarding recording classes? What I think we've determined here at our university is that there isn't. There is the expectation that most people, and what we're encouraging everybody to do is to use Blackboard Collaborate, which is built into our learning management system, and it provides privacy and within the realms of the LMS. Some people are using Zoom, and that's not supported or recommended by our university. But when people use Collaborate, it is shareable. However, the idea is that it is FERPA protected because it is contained within the LMS. Somebody, Meg, I believe earlier had a question or a comment about not wanting to record classes because of confidential information and confidential conversations, I believe. So everything every class is a little bit different, and the reason why you would or would not record could be a little different. So, but if it's within your learning management system, your privacy issues should be taken care of. And I would also have conversations and set the expectations with your students of what privacy means in this realm. You know, you can do everything that you can to maintain privacy, but then a student could share it out and then violate everybody's privacy. You know, and again, Meg made a comment about it could limit, recording could limit discussion. And it depends on how you handle it and how, where you handle it, I believe is part of it too. But one thing I think and we're finding is that it depends on how the faculty member facilitates that conversation and what it is the discussions actually are. So, you know, and again, I mentioned some classes are completely different in this case. So I'm going to, we can follow up this in a little bit more with more conversation if you like, but getting back to our thinking moment activity. You know, this again is to model what we're talking about. In chat, provide an example and describe how would you do a thinking moment activity. And again, these are your active learning exercises in class. You can go ahead and take a minute and quickly type them into chat. We'd appreciate it. What would be an example of a thinking moment activity, and describe how you would do it? So while y'all are doing that, I'm going to also show you an example of a screenshot of this thinking moment activity in Padlet. Padlet's a free tool that you can let students in class actually contribute, and also those that are participating synchronously, but it's something you can also embed in your LMS, and students who are participating asynchronously can still contribute. So we took this and as a screenshot of what we actually did during other activities. So Again, these thinking moment activities are meant to be something that could cross the 3 modalities, and something that's simple and easy for you to do and track. Vera?
Okay, but how do we facilitate engagement? How do we engage students over in 3 different groups who are not necessarily connected in time? How do we engage them in doing something together? And yes, that would require some advanced planning. If you have an instructional designer at your institution, please talk with them and solicit ideas from your colleagues, and then think what would play out better with your course content. Well, okay. Yes, that's where we are. So plan your lessons in advance, and plan. We cannot repeat that word enough times. Work with a technician at your institution to merge your course sections in your course management system together. Like at our institution, courses are set up in multiple sections, and instead of managing 3, 4, 5, 6 different sections separately, just lump them into one big site so that you can organize your activities for everybody. And we are again advocating everybody completes the same activity no matter how they attend the class. So during your live class section, to engage everybody, you need to acknowledge the fact that you have a live audience in front of you, you have those who are viewing online at the same time, and then your asynchronous group. And to keep everybody engaged in a mental dialogue with you, keep in a dialogic manner. You ask questions, and then you pause and provide an answer. So how do we engage all 3 different student groups in the same learning process, in completing the same activities? Well, it is doable. And what you can do, for example, is state a question. Now, how do you think you should approach implementing HyFlex model for your course? Make a brief pause, and then you can proceed with an answer. Or you can call on a student right in front of you in the class. And then you can look at what your live online viewers put in the chat box. When you ask for student questions, you can start with the comments in the chat box, the questions in the chat box, and then have your in-person students provide answers. So this way, at least you have great interaction between those who are right in front of you in the classroom and online. And yes, it is doable. And sometimes students who are watching online, because they are less intimidated, will come up with terrific questions and terrific ideas for discussions that your face-to-face students will engage talking about. So this is how you keep all these groups interacting with each other. And asynchronous people can contribute to the discussion after the class when they are completing their follow-up activities. So this does take developing that dexterity, but it is totally doable. And in fact, it's quite, it's even enjoyable. Yes, and we can move on and talk about the instrument that we developed to help you plan.
Ladies,
So
5 minutes.
thank you, Kristen.
Sure.
We did develop some worksheets, and we did develop a tip guide, and Kristen has shared those resources out for you, but this is a way for people to put everything in writing and to plan lessons out and estimate time. You know, so we're going to quickly move over to, and if you ever need those resources, I think they're up at the top of the chat for you. So Vera's going to talk to you a little bit about another project she's working on related to this.
Lydia, real quick.
Yes.
We were not able to share the documents through the chat, just the links.
Awesome. All right. What we were sharing were our PowerPoint, as well as a PDF of the document, our HyFlex practical guide, and that link actually takes you to the PDF of that worksheet. Vera?
Okay, so Voices from the Trenches. From a big evolution of nursing course with the total enrollment of 362 students. Right now, at this moment, we are doing a midterm evaluation, and 128 students have already responded to it. So look at what's happening in this course. In what format are you currently taking the class? And you can see how the majority of the students, an overwhelming majority of 84.5%, are taking the class synchronously online through Zoom. There's a small minority, about 7.8% in the classroom, and the same number of students chose to view it asynchronously later. But what about the perception of learning? Are they learning as much as in the classroom? And you can see how almost 63% say, I'm learning the same amount. Then, yes, there's 25.6% saying less than in the classroom course, and then there are some who are learning more. So given the fact that it is a sophomore course, that's pretty good. Now, why did the students choose to go online? Different reasons. 8:30 is too early. After viewing a few in-person sessions, I felt like I was getting a very similar experience online. And the student feels that they stay engaged. Then some are afraid of COVID. And then there are these other comments that are really very interesting. Recorded sessions are incredibly helpful for review and making sure that students don't miss anything. And then there are special populations like athletes who have to travel. And this athlete student says, it has been very nice this semester being an athlete. I have been able to view and attain all information given in lectures, and I have not fallen behind due to having to miss classes. So hybrid flex or HyFlex actually served everybody. So, any questions?
Do we have any quick questions? And while y'all are either opening your mic to ask questions or putting that in chat, we do have a follow-up online activity for you. And again, we're trying to model what we're doing. So if you will take the worksheet and try and work it out for yourself and plan out a lesson using a HyFlex model. And we have an online activity for you. Please complete the evaluation for the conference after the conference is over. And we also have a HyFlex model follow-up survey. If you would like to participate in this, you can use your phone to open the link through the QR code. And I believe Kristen was going to also drop the follow-up survey in the chat pod, and she actually just did that. But please take a minute and complete the follow-up survey. And do we have any questions for us? That brings us to the end of our session. We thank you for participating. And please feel free, we have, I think, one more minute left to ask questions and either open your mic or drop them in chat. Well, thank y'all so
all
much
for your presentation. That was wonderful.
Well, thank you for that, Kristen. I appreciate it. So if there are no questions, you have our emails. You can contact us later if you'd like the PowerPoint slides or the Word document of the worksheet. We'll be glad to email them to you. Please feel free to reach out.
Thank you all very much for being here, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you. We will.